You were part of a giant monopoly company that built its success on the bodies of many successful entrepreneurs, and you don't even know it.
Is that Windows?
Nah, this is an Apple.
You sure about that? Because it looks like Windows.
Have I ever lied to you?
All the time.
Yeah, you're right. Trust me, I'm not lying to you this one. 72% of companies worldwide are run by one person. The same guy who controls WHO, nuclear power in the US, farmland, was on the list of island visitors accused of prostitution. In Stockholm 5 years before it came out. Oh shit, I just had a Happy Meal. Huh? Isn't he the guy who owns McDonald's? Dude, he owns Microsoft. Oh, okay. Yeah, he owns Microsoft. Are you sure he was in Apple? I'm pretty sure it's his parents' fault. Bill Gates is the son of a wealthy, powerful family already. His mother was part of the largest non-profit fundraising charity organization in the world called United Way. Her job was to choose which charities are to get funded and which was not. And it did not distract me. His father on the other side was an attorney. And like any other father, he used to talk to him about law because he wanted him to become a lawyer like him. And Bill was very interested too because he always loved how laws work, which helped him later negotiate with people in high position. Something that got him many business opportunities to his small company.
6.
Marvel! Bill Gates fell in love with the machines and computers at a young age. He was upset why computers back then only existed in big corporations, colleges and banks, on which you could only rent time to access. And that's for a reason. Because of his wealthy family, he got one at the age of 13 and wrote his first software computer program, one of the best simple games ever invented. Tic-tac-toe game.
What the heck?
Bendy, I'm talking 60s, man. 60s. No, I'm saying, isn't it strange he started his company before he was born? What? See? That's your problem. As much knowledge as you have, you can do anything without me. Let me teach you something today. Let me enlighten you. McDonald's was founded in 1940. Because of the knowledge he gained, his school paid him to access their computer and has to build a program that completely digitalizes the school payroll system. He took advantage of this to put him in classes made up mostly of girls.
Time to learn coding, boys.
Once the school stopped paying, Bill and his friends, out of which is his best friend, Alan. Remember Alan because we're coming back to it. Hacked into a computer of a company called CCC to get a free computer time instead. They were soon banned after the company discovered what they were doing. A few months later, the company said, you know, maybe we'll give you a second chance. This was when Bill and his friend Alan created their first company, Trafo Data.
Syndrome? The Incredibles, right?
I don't know, man. At this business, they were developing software for internet traffic. Few years later, the business failed and the company closed down. Bill didn't leave school though. He was still studying and scoring high marks. He scored 5090 out of 1600 on the SAT, with which he got accepted by Harvard University. This is where Bill met Steve Ballmer, the guy who became CEO of Microsoft after Bill retired. Paul Allen on the other side dropped out of Washington College to work on computers at Honeywell Corporation. He then convinced Bill to drop out of Harvard and join him in starting a new software company in New Mexico. One day, Allen entered Bill's room holding a paper. Nope, that's not what I meant. No, it's a paper from the popular electronics magazine. The paper had a picture on the cover of the Altair 8800. Altair 8800 was a revolutionary product because it made it possible for people to place the huge big computer companies and big government institutions have in your pocket and walk with it. But it was with no mouse or keyboard or a screen. Its only problem was that it didn't have a software.
Definitely not the only problem.
This is where Alan and Bell saw the opportunity of making a software for this computer.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is where Microsoft was created in 1975. First thing they did is contact an Altair's company. Instead, we've created a primitive interpretation software which would function on its own as an operating system. Problem is, they didn't have anything.
Bruh.
So they worked day and night for 8 weeks straight, inventing the first software of the first microcomputer. They told Ed Rover that it's ready and they want to meet him, which indeed happened, and the software was placed in the Altair. And it worked! Everyone cheered up, and the company succeeded in growing as a business, moving its offices from New Mexico to Washington. And that's by creating and selling the same software to other computer companies. The company expanded its team further and jumped into hardware. This is where Bill Gates used one of his biggest cuts to ever exist: his mom. Thanks to his mom's connections, she knew some of the executives at IBM that she recommended her son to. After she knew the company was planning to get into the microcomputer market but was struggling with the software, they agreed on creating a contract. Imagine securing a contract with the biggest mainframe computers company with a giant market share of 80% produced computers in the US and 70% worldwide. Microsoft at that time was launching a new operating system called MS-DOS. He knew they were a giant company, so he didn't want to take too long building the new operating system for them the same way he had been doing to other companies. Can see any evil in that. So he bought it from Seattle Computers for the lowest possible price, ranging between 50k to 100k. Renamed it and resold it to IBM. After he guaranteed through the agreement he made with Redbrook, the owner of Seattle Computers Company, that he has the right to resell it to other companies as he wants. And of course told IBM that it was them who invented the software.
Take that back.
Microsoft made with this in few years more than $200 million net profit. Rodbrook sued Microsoft at the court multiple times, and he only got $925,000 out of it, which wasn't enough to keep his company alive. so it went bankrupt by the end of the 80s, while Microsoft retained the rights to 86 DOS. Bill was like a nightmare to everyone working at the company. A person who was working for countless hours daily, he was expecting the same thing from his employees too. So he went very early to work before anyone else to know which one of his employees went early to work. And then at the end of the day, he comes down and checks again who quit early. Military-like system that he imposes on every employee at his company. They knew what he was doing, so they used to stay for late hours because they know whoever's car disappeared first, Bill was gonna punish later no matter what. Same thing for meeting. It was very normal to see him throwing his pen at you or interrupting your point saying this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
He's very famous for having always said, "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard."
Berate you in your fellow employees' proposals, forcing you to defend yourself till he's satisfied with your explanation.
That's ridiculous. I'm not using this thing. No. Somebody's confused. Somebody's just not thinking. I mean, there's no way.
We'll figure it out.
You guys never understood. You never understood the first thing about this.
And rarely, if you were lucky enough, the meeting will go smoothly without him. In 1985, Microsoft would release what would become the most successful product they would ever come up with, an operating system that's based on their early MS-DOS.
Brooks product?
During that period, his best friend Paul Allen was diagnosed with cancer, which forced him to take a few days off and lowered his performance at the company. One day by accident, Paul Allen heard Bill saying that he wanted to reduce his stress in the company, and that's because recently Paul wasn't focused on work like he was before. And Bill, when he was saying that, knew about the disease his best friend had. For that reason, Allen quit Microsoft and took his shares with him. Can you imagine that this is how he treated his best friend and the person he knew since high school, let alone his employee? One of these employees is Philip Florence, who was a victim of all these things Bill Gates was doing. So to run away of Bill's anger, he was working more than 100 hours per week till one day he had a heart attack. And then after he came back of the surgery, instead of Bill making sure he was safe and giving him a period of rest, he told him, after having the heart attack you had, I don't think you could be productive as you were before. You're fired. His computers weren't spared either. SSI developed a word processing software called WordPerfect. The software gained popularity due to its powerful features and flexibility. It became the dominant word processor on DOS-based PCs by late 1980s. Bill Gates, ladies and gentlemen, copy-paste that. He saw how well the software was performing, so he created Microsoft Word. And he went too far by purposely making WordPerfect perform poorly, including allegations that they deliberately provided inaccurate and incomplete technical information to WordPerfect's developers, resulting in compatibility issues and performance lags on Windows, applying one of the most aggressive anti-competitive practices in history of technology, causing the company being close to bankruptcy before they were acquired by Novel for $1.4 billion, which tried different roads with Microsoft and SSI did, but failed and closed it down.
What the heck?
Swear to God if you told me McDonald's again.
Chill, man, I'm not. I just wanted to say that he was like regularly meeting with his best friends at McDonald's.
Okay.
They used to order Happy Meals too.
What does that have to do with this?
I was just saying maybe he was like eating too much Happy Meals. Maybe it's because he's getting it for free.
Why would he get it for free? Is he friends with the owner?
No, maybe because he owns it.
Microsoft by the end of the 80s was on top of the operating systems market. It wasn't good for Bill to see a new startup on the rise threatening his position. His next victim would be Lotus Company. Nope, no, wrong logo. I'm talking developers of Lotus 123.
Cheap ass name.
Hey, show some respect. This was the best spreadsheet application at that time. These guys are the ones who have invented spreadsheet as we know it today. It was very successful that sometimes it exceeded Microsoft's profits. Bill saw this and he wasn't satisfied, so they came up with Excel to compete with Lotus. The competition wasn't fair at all. Bill had the advantage of having his operating system on every computer, which gave him the power to give the applications his company was making a priority on. Excel was fast and responsive on Windows. Once you turn on Lotus, you'd see this screen. And even if you fix this screen, the application wouldn't be responsive and it would be hard to execute anything on. Bill Gates did it on purpose to destroy Lotus and take their place in the market. He told his engineers to make Lotus unresponsive and have really bad performance compared to Excel. There was even a popular quote at Microsoft for this, saying "Thus isn't done till Lotus can run." The same strategy Microsoft used with Lotus is gonna use in 1995 with another competitor Bill had. Mark Anderson came out of nowhere, surprising Bill Gates, who was on the top of the computer industry for years, with a new invention called the browser, an application he called Netscape Navigator, a new field Bill Gates never thought of before. The World Wide Web, at a time in which the internet was just invented, a vast world of images and information that you can only get access to through a browser. The first application of its kind that ever existed, that Mark made when he was still in college. The browser went viral. Viral at that time isn't like going viral these days. At that time you had no social media, so going viral means something unseen before was happening. The college's server on which the browser was uploaded crashed due to the amount of downloads. Most people who accessed the internet at that time were accessing it through Netscape. Anderson became a star, and all magazines were posting his pictures instead of Bill's pictures they were posting years before. Bill felt like he wasn't powerful enough. He had the power over anyone who wanted to access his operating systems in all desktop applications that the company provides you with. Now, the operating system is just a portal people use to access Netscape, so he was trying to destroy him before Microsoft's falls. Before Bill Gates took action on what he had in mind of destroying Netscape, he scheduled a meeting with Netscape's board of directors. He offered them a chance for Microsoft to acquire Netscape for a very small amount of money that the board wasn't satisfied with. And then when they asked what if they rejected the offer, Bill Gates answered like a mafia boss, "You better accept the offer or else you're not gonna like what's gonna happen." Definitely not what Zuckerberg did to Snapchat. Man, I was expecting you to say that. As a meeting with Don Vito of Godfather, and he says he was scared that one day he would wake up finding a slaughtered computer next to him in bed. As an answer to what Bill Gates did to Mark, he went with his company for an IPO on the stock exchange. After the IPO for the first time in history for a company that existed only 2 years ago, Gates, when he saw that, he declared war. After 4 months, Microsoft released the strongest browser that ever existed, the fastest and most responsive browser of all time, Internet Explorer.
Damn.
Just like before, he took advantage of having Windows on every computer, some of which the same Netscape browser exists on, and announced that the browser would be the default browser to come with all Microsoft's operating system. Netscape's stock collapsed, and it ended up following the path of IBM, Seattle Computers, and Lotus, and Microsoft took over again. Bill Gates this time, he was savage more than he ever was. Emails were leaked in which Bill Gates said Microsoft planned to cut off Netscape's air supply, or in other words, by giving away free browsers, Microsoft was going to keep Netscape from getting off the ground. Microsoft was even paying other companies to put its browser as the default browser to guarantee erasing Netscape's existence on other platforms too, out of which Netscape was living. Like every time, Bill succeeded again. Let me shock you even more by saying Microsoft's Windows wasn't invented by Microsoft either. They stole it too? Yup. This time, the victim is Apple. In the early 80s, Macintosh used Microsoft's operating system, just like any other computer back then.
Wait, really?
Yup. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were both happy with the earnings they were making because of Apple's great product.
Welcome to the Macintosh software dating game. Software CEOs, could I please ask you to introduce yourselves?
My name is Bill Gates. I'm chairman of Microsoft.
Bill was very impressed with Apple's Macintosh. He wished he could have known how it was developed, so he can make one of his own at Microsoft.
Well, to create a new standard, it takes something that's not just a little bit different. It takes something that's really new and really captures people's imagination. And the Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard.
Because he couldn't, he was happy with keeping the collaboration to keep earning more together. Disaster started when Apple launched Lisa. Apple invented one of the biggest products in history of technology. Desktop apps, trash bin you can remove anything from, folder where you can store your files in, a mouse you can move and click on your screen with, a menu above organizing everything you have for you. Overall, the second graphical user interface in the world.
You mean first?
Nope. We'll explain in seconds why is it second, not first. Steve named it Lisa after his ex-girlfriend's 9-year-old daughter that he used to play with and loved. Bill Gates knew it was revolutionary. It's because they've been working together for years that Steve Jobs asked him if he can create a program for the Lisa computer. It's not who you should be asking, man. Bill agreed to do that, but he wanted a prototype of the Apple's Lisa so he can be able to do that. And that's what Steve Jobs did. Yup. Bill got exactly what he always wanted to get, creating one of his own at Microsoft. Apple launched the Apple Lisa. It didn't sell well.
Damn, son.
Bill Gates on the other side was launching his own cloned version of Lisa with his own GUI, Windows 1.0. Steve Jobs got angry. Not gonna lie, he did too. He was shouting at him saying, "I trusted you." And Bill calmly replied, "Well, Steve, I think there's more than one way of looking at it. I think it's more like we both had this rich neighbor named Xerox, and I broke into his house to steal the TV set and found out that you had already stolen it."
And did that really happen?
Yup. In 1979, Steve Jobs and his employees at Apple were invited to Xerox, and that's to see the actual first graphical user interface Steve got inspired by to put it in his Apple Lisa device. Apple sold Microsoft in 1988 for copyright infringement of not only Lisa GUI, but many other ideas that Steve came up with in his Lisa device that Windows didn't have back then. Nothing happened and Microsoft continued to dominate the market.
The technology crashed and burned at Xerox. Why?
Yeah, why?
Technology companies, they get monopolies. Like, IBM and Xerox.
He could have done to them the same thing he did to Netscape, and we wouldn't have had smartphones invented today or Apple existing today, right? That was very possible because they were at some point very close to bankruptcy, very much like SSI, Netscape, and all other companies we mentioned before.
How did they manage to get through it then?
As funny as that is, it was Microsoft that saved them because they were really close to bankruptcy. They invested $150 million in Apple. Listen, I don't even get it myself.
And I'd like to announce one of our first partnerships today, a very, very meaningful one, and that is one with Microsoft.
Yep, he was forced to do a press conference on. Rest in peace, sir. Now I can go on and on and on with other applications, like Replay, for which Microsoft created Windows Media Player, or Slack with Microsoft Teams, which he cloned and killed to be the only dominant in the market. The US Department of Justice saw that Microsoft was crossing the line way more than it's supposed to, by engaging in evil anti-competitive practices to eliminate competitors' browsers as competing platforms for running software applications, which is why it gathered with 20 other states in 1998 to accuse Bill of monopoly. They filed an antitrust lawsuit against it. No one else could afford a good lawyer. I mean, you can see that yourself. It was so powerful that the US Department had to gather with 20 other states to fight this. This case, which continued for several years, caused the stock price of Microsoft to collapse and Bill's reputation to fall with it, something that forced him to leave the CEO position at his company. Gates lost the case, and the court ruled that Microsoft should be divided into two companies, one for the operating system and the other one for the applications. Microsoft appealed the case, and the dismantling never happened. Now that his reputation got affected, the next mission for Bill was to build it back, and that's by changing the media coverage. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation during that period donated
Human invested?
more than $320 million to media projects like CNN, ABC, NBC, BBC, PBS, and even outside the US. Punch Business Day in Nigeria, Le Monde in France, Koskizad on YouTube, etc. Take into account that whatever company this foundation donates to starts promoting his global agenda and avoiding almost anything that criticizes him. Bill even funded entire journalistic careers from education to media outlets, which explains why till today, Bill Gates has always had a positive media and news coverage, despite him continuing to do worse, 100 times more than when he was doing back in the 90s to other companies of his competitors, one of which is funding the WHO with more donations than the US government. In other countries like the UK, the continent of Europe, Japan, Canada, giving him unsurpassed control power over global health decisions. He's also the largest farmland owner in America, with more than 269 lands in the US. That's 80% of all US farmland in just the past 4 years. I don't think you heard me right. 80% of all taking advantage of the market's crashing in 2020, including the farmland sector market. I don't think you heard me right. The farmland sector has— What are you doing, man? I'm doing like you did. There is nothing interesting about the market crashing to hear twice. There's nothing interesting about— No, there is. Being the largest in 4 years isn't like the market crash. It does that every 12 years. God! Guess I discovered that Bill was buying farmland like crazy. Surely not the media. It was a research team that worked really hard to dig deeper into the topic of an investor making the largest land sale of $171 million. Bill didn't want to see his name associated with any of these purchases he was making, and that's so people don't notice, which could harm his reputation again that he spent hundreds of millions to polish. What type of control does that give him? Those are exactly the type of questions you should be asking. Are you saying I'm dumb? When did I say that? Literally, when did I say that?
I heard you say it. I heard you say it.
Literally, when did I say that? I know, I didn't say it. Yeah, I heard you say it. I'm saying I heard you say it. Being the largest farmland owner means he largely controls food supply and security. Gates is a big proponent of artificial meat. He has always been supporting this publicly and talking about it.
What's called artificial meat. And so you have people like Impossible or Beyond Meat, both of which I invested in.
It wouldn't be surprising to see him push for widespread adoption of genetically modified crops or impact local communities. We've all seen his history with monopoly, so he could also manipulate agricultural markets by controlling the supply of key crops. I'm just saying that he has the power to do so. It's about having power over agriculture and imposing specific food restrictions over the populace. Now on top of all this, there is more. He had very close connections with which he broke up with his lifelong friend and devoted wife Melinda after 27 years of marriage. He also has a military empire that's trying to take over the US military. How is that and what happened is what we're gonna see in the next video. Like, subscribe, peace!